Anna was always a cheerful child, raised in a home full of love and care. She grew up in a small town, surrounded by her parents' affection and the constant visits of close family friends. Her parents, Clara and Marcos, were always present and protective figures in her life. Anna remembered spending afternoons in the backyard, playing under her father's attentive gaze. He always made a point of either participating in the games or, at the very least, watching with a smile. Clara, her mother, was warm-hearted, someone who always knew how to make any difficulty seem smaller with just a hug. During her childhood, Anna also remembered Uncle João with fondness, a close family friend who was part of nearly all her happy memories. João was the type of person who always brought gifts and funny jokes, and his face was familiar at birthday parties and Sunday dinners. He seemed almost like a second father, someone who always made her feel special in a different, more laid-back way. There were even stories of how he had been there on the day she was born, and his visits were so frequent that, as a child, Anna used to think he lived just next door. During her adolescence, Anna faced some of the typical challenges of that age: insecurities, uncertainties about the future, the ups and downs of friendships and first loves. But the stable presence of her parents and the close circle of family friends was always a pillar. Clara and Marcos always encouraged her to study and chase her dreams. João remained present, now offering advice on her career, on how to deal with the pressure of choosing a college, always adding a touch of humor to ease Anna's worries. When she turned 18, Anna went to college in a nearby city, returning home on weekends. These moments were always filled with reunions and nostalgia. Clara would cook her favorite meals and Marcos would insist on long conversations about how she was doing, while João never missed an opportunity to drop by occasionally to see how little Anna was coping with adult life. Everything seemed to be perfectly balanced. Anna had a loving family and a support network that made her feel safe. However, at 22, Anna graduated and returned home, planning to start her adult life there, close to her parents and her roots. Little did she know that she was about to discover something that would change her entire perspective on her own life. It was just an ordinary weekend, a Sunday without any special commitments. Anna had offered to help her mother organize the attic, a place filled with memories accumulated over the years: childhood toys, boxes of old photos, and other forgotten items. To her, it was like opening a time capsule. Clara was downstairs, busy preparing lunch, while Anna, armed with a broom and a cloth, began exploring the old boxes. Among the old items, Anna found an old dresser that seemed to have been there for a long time, perhaps even before she was born. It was a piece that had never caught much attention, worn with drawers that were hard to open. Determined, she pulled on one of the drawers, which finally gave way with a creak. Inside, among old papers, dusty videotapes, and a few letters yellowed by time, Anna found something she hadn't expected: a sealed envelope that seemed much more personal, as if it contained something intimate and confidential. Curiosity got the better of her. It was a handwritten letter, and the familiar handwriting quickly indicated that it had been written by her mother. Anna hesitated for a moment. She knew this was crossing a line, something too personal, but the sense of urgency and mystery made her continue. She sat down on the dusty floor and opened the letter, beginning to read each word slowly. As she read, Anna felt a chill rising up her spine. The letter spoke of a period in her mother's life that Anna didn't know about, a time of loneliness and difficult choices. But what truly caught her attention and made her heart race was the revelation about her origin. The letter stated that her biological father was not Marcos, the man she had always loved and admired as her father. Instead, her real father was João, Marcos's best friend, the same Uncle João who had held her as a baby, told her funny stories, and been present in every stage of her life. The impact of that revelation was like a punch in the stomach. Anna reread the letter several times, hoping she had misunderstood something. But there was no doubt. Each line was clear. Childhood memories began parading through her mind, now under a new and dark perspective. Every smile from João, every affectionate gesture, every inside joke he made about being like a father to her, everything now seemed laden with hidden meaning. Anna felt a lump in her throat, a mix of anger and fear welling up inside her. There, in the middle of the dusty attic, Anna felt as if the world she knew was collapsing. The walls of her home, which once represented safety and love, now seemed built on lies. She didn't know how to process all of this, how to look her parents in the eye knowing that her entire past had, in fact, been a lie. Every detail of her childhood now seemed false, as if she had lived a story that wasn't truly hers. Anna remained there sitting on the floor, tears beginning to roll down her cheeks. The letter was still in her hands, while her mind struggled against the new reality that had presented itself. In that moment, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again, and whatever happened from then on would forever change her life and how she saw herself. After finding the letter in the attic, Anna felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet. She stood there, still holding the paper, trying to process the devastating truth about her own origin. A mix of emotions consumed her. Anger, sadness, helplessness. It was as if all the certainties of her life had been swept away by a sudden and violent storm. When she came down the stairs, Anna felt the weight of the letter burning in her hands, but she decided not to confront her mother at that moment. She was too stunned, too lost to start any conversation. Clara was in the kitchen humming an old song while she stirred something on the stove, completely unaware of the whirlwind of emotions that Anna carried. Looking at her mother, Anna felt a sharp pain in her chest. How could she act as if everything were normal? How could she have hidden something so important, something that impacted Anna's very identity? Anna left the house without saying anything. She needed air, space. She started walking through the neighborhood streets, but soon realized that the walk wasn't helping her calm down. The anger and confusion were crushing her. She didn't know how to keep living with so many questions. Who was she really? Who were her parents after all? Who was Joan to her? All these years, all the love she had felt from her father, from Marcos, was it real or had it also been part of this lie? Back in her room, Anna looked at the photos on her shelf. There were several from when she was a child. Her mother, her father, herself smiling in their arms. And in many of them, Joan was also there. Suddenly, all those moments that once seemed to be a pure happiness now seemed murky and unsettling. She wondered how much of that love she received was genuine. She began to doubt every word and gesture of affection. Did her father know the truth? Did he live all these years believing he was her father? Or did he also know and just pretend? Anna's mind was plunged into a heavy fog of uncertainty. The days that followed were an emotional whirlwind for Anna. She distanced herself from her family, finding excuses to avoid her mother and father. She began watching Joan with distrust. During one of Joan's usual visits, in which he came over with his usual carefree and cheerful demeanor, bringing a cake to brighten up the afternoon, Anna felt disgusted at how comfortable he acted, as if nothing was out of place. How could he be there, in her family's house, and act like that? Had he ever thought about telling the truth, or had he also preferred to live a convenient lie? Anna also began to question her own identity. Was she really who she thought she was? Or had her entire life been an illusion, a reflection of what others wanted her to believe? Every childhood memory, every joyful moment now seemed distorted. She felt like an intruder in her own story, as if the years she had lived until now had been stolen. She remembered specific moments that now took on a different meaning. The way Joan looked at her sometimes, the times he showed up unexpectedly, the always special gifts. She remembered the times he said she was the most important girl in the world to him, and now those words sounded loaded with hidden intentions. Anna also began to doubt her father, Marcos. Did he know everything? Did he accept Joan in their lives, at family parties, at Sunday lunches, knowing that he was Anna's real father? Or was he a victim, just like her? This doubt gnawed at her. She didn't know whom to trust. The man who raised her, who taught her to ride a bike and helped her with her homework, now seemed like a stranger. As the days turned into weeks, Anna realized she was emotionally distancing herself from everyone. More and more isolated, she found herself avoiding conversations, running from her parents' gaze. They noticed the change, but Anna didn't have the strength to confront the situation. She knew she would have to face the truth eventually, but she feared what she might discover. Even more, she feared her mother's reaction. She wanted answers, but part of her heart still felt deeply hurt, unable to deal with the idea that Clara, who had always been her source of comfort, had betrayed her trust so deeply. That letter had changed everything for Anna. It wasn't just about who her real father was. It was about who she was and about the foundations on which her life had been built. She felt as if she were in ruins, as if the ground that used to be firm was now made of quicksand. Every step seemed uncertain. Every decision seemed loaded with fear and doubt. What once was a peaceful life was now full of shadows and questions, and Anna had no idea how to find her way back to the light. The days following the discovery of the letter left Anna feeling as if she were living in a parallel reality. Everything seemed the same on the surface. The family routines, her parents' usual gestures. But inside her, everything had changed. Every word and every gesture from her parents now seemed suspicious, full of intentions she couldn't decipher. Her mind kept replaying the possibility that everyone knew the secret and pretended, smiling at her as if nothing was happening. Anna isolated herself, consumed more and more by doubt and anger. One morning, Anna came down for breakfast and found Clara in the kitchen, making toast. The scene seemed so normal that, for a second, Anna almost forgot what she had discovered. But as she approached the table, something inside her broke at seeing her mother's usual smile. Anna sat down in silence, feeling her stomach turn. Clara, unaware of the tension, said cheerfully, "Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well? There are warm toasts here." Anna merely nodded vaguely without responding. She looked at her mother as if seeing her for the first time. Someone with deep secrets, who managed to act with disconcerting normality while hiding a devastating truth. Clara, noticing the distance, frowned, concerned. "Are you okay, honey? You seem a little distant." Anna held her mother's gaze for a moment, fighting the urge to confront her right there. She limited herself to responding coldly. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a bit tired." Clara nodded, but something in her eyes showed worry. Anna knew she couldn't keep hiding her behavior change for much longer. A few days later, Joan showed up for an unexpected visit. He entered the house as he always did, smiling and full of energy, carrying a cake that he said he brought to brighten up the afternoon. Clara welcomed him in the living room, and Anna, upon hearing his voice, hesitated before going downstairs. Her feelings were mixed. A growing anger because she knew the truth and a fear of looking at him without betraying herself. When Joan saw her, he gave her a warm smile. "Look who's here! How's my girl?" Anna forced a smile but couldn't respond. Joan came closer and tried to give her a hug, but she instinctively backed away, creating an uncomfortable silence. Clara, noticing the tension, tried to smooth things over by laughing nervously. "Anna is a bit tired, Joan. It's been a complicated week for her." Joan laughed, oblivious to the real reason behind Anna's discomfort. "Ah, I get it. Tough phases, right? It'll pass soon." Anna just nodded, barely able to look at him. His presence now felt suffocating, full of a closeness she could no longer bear. The weight of the secret made her feel betrayed every time Joan spoke with his usual lightness. That same week, Anna had a brief conversation with Marcos, her father. He had noticed the growing distance between them and tried to connect with her, concerned. One night while Anna was in the living room, he sat down beside her on the couch after hesitating a bit. "Anna, I've noticed that you've been different. I know you don't like me intruding, but if there's anything I can do, I'm here. You know that, right?" Anna looked at her father, the man who had raised her and who had always been her hero. In her heart, there was an unbearable mix of love and pain. She wanted to believe he didn't know anything, that he was also a victim. But at the same time, she couldn't ignore the possibility that he knew everything. She wanted to ask, she wanted to scream to know the truth, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, she simply nodded, swallowing her anguish. "I'm fine, Dad. I'm just going through some things." Marcos looked at her for a long moment before smiling, visibly worried. "That's okay. You don't have to tell me now. Just know I'm here for you, always." Anna wanted to respond, but she had no strength. All she could do was look at her father, desperately hoping he wasn't complicit in the lie. As Marcos moved away, Anna felt the knot in her throat tighten even more. She knew she couldn't avoid the truth for much longer. The days of uncertainty and agony kept piling up, becoming unbearable for Anna. The constant doubt, the weight of the betrayal she carried, and the forced interactions with João and Marcos made Anna feel on the brink of collapse. She knew that sooner or later she would have to confront her mother. The secret hidden in the letter was too big to simply ignore. She needed answers, and she needed to understand Clara's role in the story, why she had chosen to hide the truth, and whether everything she had lived was a lie. One night, when all the sounds of the house had quieted down and silence took over, Anna went down the stairs determined. Clara was in the living room folding some clothes while watching television. When she heard her daughter's footsteps, Clara looked up and smiled, but her smile quickly faded at the sight of Anna's expression. "Mom, we need to talk," Anna said, her voice low but tense. Clara put the clothes aside and sat up on the sofa, noticing her daughter's serious tone. "Of course, sweetheart. What happened? You've seemed so worried lately," Clara replied, her concern evident in her voice. Anna approached and sat in front of her mother. She took a deep breath before continuing, then took the letter out of her jacket pocket, the same letter she had found days earlier. Clara's gaze froze upon recognizing the envelope, and she immediately turned pale. "I found this in the attic, and I read it, Mom. I know the truth." Her words came out trembling, but firm. Anna watched her mother's reaction, who seemed to lose all color from her face, as if her world was collapsing around her. "Anna," Clara began, but her voice failed. Her eyes filled with tears, and she stood up, nervously pacing the room. "So it's true," Anna insisted, her voice now revealing the anger she felt. "Everything you and Dad have told me until today was a lie? That Uncle João is my real father? Why did you hide this from me for so long?" Clara started to cry, tears running silently down her face. She knew that this moment would come, but she had never known how to prepare for it. She sat down again, holding her trembling hands in her lap, and began to speak, her voice broken. "I wanted to protect you, Anna. It wasn't a secret I kept out of malice, but because I didn't know how to handle it. João, he was important during a very difficult moment in my life. Marcos and I were separated for a while, a complicated period when I thought I had lost everything." Clara wiped her tears, trying to pull herself together, but her eyes couldn't meet Anna's. "I was alone, desperate, and Joan was a friend, someone who gave me support. Things just happened. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. When I found out I was pregnant, Marcos and I had gotten back together. He wanted this family, Anna. He accepted me back even without knowing if you were his or not. He chose to be your father, above any doubt. It was a choice made out of love, and I chose to keep this secret to protect you. I never wanted you to feel this pain, this confusion you're feeling now." Anna shook her head, struggling against the tears that were also threatening to fall. Part of her wanted to understand, wanted to believe her mother's words, but the pain and anger were still present. "Protect me from what, Mom? From who I am? How did you think I would never find out? How could you let Joan come and go in our lives as if nothing had happened?" Anna's voice rose, overflowing with the accumulated hurt. Clara sobbed, finally lifting her eyes to meet Anna's. Her gaze was a mix of guilt and deep sadness. "Because, Anna, I was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared that you would hate me for my choices. Scared that it would destroy our family. I knew I made the wrong choice by hiding the truth. But every time you smiled, every time I saw you and Marcos together, I just wanted it to continue. For you to have the happiest life possible. I know I failed you, and nothing I say will erase that. But I love you, Anna. I always have, with all my heart." Anna was silent, watching her mother cry. The anger didn't disappear, but something inside her softened, a recognition that her mother was human, fallible. She didn't know what to feel. She was still very hurt, but she couldn't completely hate Clara. Anna stood up without saying anything else, leaving her mother there, crying alone. There was so much to process, so many emotions to deal with. She wasn't ready to forgive, but maybe at some point she could understand. She climbed the stairs slowly, feeling the weight of the truth in every step. There were no easy answers or simple paths. The only certainty was that life as she knew it would never be the same, and that somehow she would need to deal with this new reality, one step at a time. The conversation with Clara left Anna even more confused and emotionally exhausted. Although her mother had exposed her vulnerabilities and given her version of the facts, the complexity of the situation overwhelmed her. Anna couldn't just process everything and move on. The words Clara had said about Marcos's love, Joan's sacrifice, and her desire to protect Anna echoed in her head, like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. The revelation still hurt deeply, but Anna felt trapped by a need to understand not just what happened, but why each of the people involved had made their choices. The morning after confronting her mother, Anna decided she needed to speak to João. She wanted to hear his truth, to understand what role he had played, and above all, to find out if there was love involved or if it had all just been a huge mistake filled with regret. João's visits were always informal and unassuming, so Anna didn't have to wait long to see him again. When he appeared, she asked him to join her in the garden, stepping away from the house to avoid Clara overhearing. Interaction with João? What's going on, Anna? João asked, surprised, noticing the seriousness in her eyes. He tried to smile, but there was something in her expression that made him realize that this was not the time for his usual jokes. Anna took a deep breath, her heart pounding. I know everything, João. I know that you're my biological father. João was silent for a moment, his face growing tense. He looked down, seemingly absorbing the impact of her words. Finally, he nodded slowly, his eyes filled with deep sadness. I imagined this day would come, he said, his voice breaking. Anna, I have no excuse for what happened. I was a confused man, and your mother was going through a hard time. We made a mistake, and from that mistake, you were born. Not a day has gone by that I didn't regret the pain this could cause you and Marcos. But at the same time, not a day went by that I didn't look at you and feel an indescribable love. You are a blessing, Anna, even though you came from such a complicated situation. Anna couldn't hold back the tears streaming down her face. There were so many questions, so much to be said, but nothing seemed enough. And Marcos, did he know? João shook his head. Clara told him the truth. When you were born, Marcos knew there was a possibility he wasn't your biological father. But he chose to stay. He chose to love you unconditionally as his daughter. There was never any doubt for him, Anna. He always wanted to be your father, regardless of anything. Hearing this, Anna's heart tightened. A mixture of pain and gratitude took hold of her. The idea that Marcos had chosen to love her, despite the uncertainty, was something that struck her deeply. The man she called father knew the truth, knew he might not be her biological father, but still remained. He had been by her side, taught her, guided her, loved her as if there had never been any other option. Anna realized that this love was genuine, perhaps even more genuine than she had imagined. Why did you never tell me? Anna asked, her voice trembling, looking at João. João took a deep breath, his eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't want to destroy the family you had. Clara and Marcos love you so much, and I knew that if I tried to approach you as your father, I would end up causing a pain you didn't deserve to carry. My presence has always been as Uncle João, because that was the only way I found to be close to you without ruining what they had built. I thought that would be the best for you, even if it hurt me not to be able to tell you who I really was. Anna saw the sacrifice in João's eyes. It was a kind of silent love, a love that he carried without asking for anything in return, without invading Marcos's space, without ever demanding to be recognized as her father. It was a sacrifice that was perhaps difficult to understand, but it now made sense to her. João, in his own way, had also chosen what he thought was best for Anna, even if it meant giving up the title of father. After the conversation with João, Anna knew she had to speak with Marcos. This was the conversation she feared the most, but also the most necessary. She waited until Marcos returned from work that night and asked him to sit with her on the couch in the living room. Anna held the letter, showing that there were no more secrets between them. Dad, I need to understand. You knew from the beginning that there was a chance you weren't my biological father? Anna asked, her voice trembling but direct. Marcos looked at his daughter, his eyes filled with emotion. He nodded slowly and leaned forward, holding Anna's hands in his. I knew, Anna. Clara told me right after we got back together. And yes, there were doubts. There was fear. But when I saw you for the first time, when I held you in my arms, none of that mattered anymore. I knew you were my daughter, and you always would be. Biology never mattered to me. You're my daughter because I chose to be your father, and because I loved you from the first second. Marco's words were like a balm for Anna's heart. The pain and anger were still there, but something inside her began to calm down. The love Marcos described, the love he showed in every gesture, was real. He had chosen to be her father even knowing the truth, and that spoke volumes about the man he was. Anna cried and hugged Marcos, letting him hold her as he did when she was a child and afraid of the dark. The tears were of pain, but also of relief. She knew that the process of acceptance and forgiveness would still be long, that there was still much to face. But in that moment, in her father's embrace, she found some of the peace she so desperately needed. Beginning a new relationship with João. Finally, there was João. Anna was not yet ready to fully accept João in her life as her father, but she began to realize that his love was also part of the story that had shaped her. It wasn't fair to him or to herself to simply pretend he didn't exist. After days of pondering, Anna decided she wanted to start from scratch, but in a careful and respectful way. She found him at the coffee shop he always went to, and João seemed surprised to see her enter. He stood up, nervous, and Anna motioned for him to sit back down. She sat across from him without much ceremony. I don't know how to do this, João. I don't know if I can see you as a father, but I'd like to try to understand what that means for us in a way that makes sense. I don't want to feel angry anymore, and I think we need to start slowly, understanding who we are now. João's eyes filled with tears and he just nodded, moved. I don't want anything more than that, Anna. I just want to be here, however you need, in whatever way is best for you. Anna smiled for the first time without pain or tension. They still had a long road ahead, but that coffee was the beginning of something new. Anna was willing to give him a chance, not because forgiveness was easy, but because the weight of anger had become too heavy to carry. With time, Anna began to reconnect with her own story. She began to understand that the truth about her origin, though painful, was part of what made her who she was. Each of the three adults who played such significant roles in her life, Clara, Marcos, and João, had their flaws and mistakes, but each of them had contributed to who she had become. Anna no longer tried to erase the difficult or complicated parts of her story. Accepting those parts meant accepting herself fully, with all the complexities and contradictions. She realized that forgiveness meant giving herself the right to live without carrying the burden of others. And by doing so, she began to build something new, something more authentic, honest, and filled with love, even with all the challenges. This journey of forgiveness and acceptance wasn't the end, but the beginning of a new chapter for Anna. Now she was determined to live the life she wanted, based on choices that were hers alone, strengthened by the complicated but deep love that those around her had for her. Imperfect love, with all its mistakes and successes, was the only solid truth left, and Anna chose to embrace it with all her heart. If this story touched you in any way, leave a comment below with your thoughts and share your own experiences. We love hearing from you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories like this. And of course, activate the bell to be the first to receive the news. Share this video with friends and family and help us spread these lessons of love, overcoming, and forgiveness. Until next time.